Por un lado está Christian Königsheim, que es uno de los cofundadores de TAXDOO, es el director general de la plataforma. Al final, TAXDOO es una plataforma para la agilización, digamos, y de requisitos y de alguna manera preparar a las empresas para este entorno fiscal, digamos, de toda la venta internacional en Marketplace. Junto con ello también está Maximilian, que al final es el Sales Manager de TAXDOO, con más de 12 años de experiencia profesional. Elsa está también como Country Manager aquí en España, que también, bueno, ella está en contacto diario con múltiples empresas y asesorías fiscales para tratar, bueno, todos estos requisitos de tramitaciones transfronterizas, de IVA, etcétera. Con todo este equipazo, yo ya os dejo que podáis ya ir compartiendo y contando y luego al final dejaremos también un espacio para las preguntas. Christian, also nice to meet you for this marketplace expansion first edition. Sorry that I was talking only Spanish for Maximilian and Elsa.
No problem.
Nice to have you here on board, and we just let now you to show all the vision that TAXDOO wants to show.
Of course, yeah. Thank you very much. It's truly an honor to be here. Unfortunately, I'm not able to do the presentation in Spanish. I wish I could, but I'll just have to brush up maybe on my language skills just a little bit. As far as I can see, like the camera is not on. Is that true, or is that on my side?
The camera switch off. Maximilian has got it on, and Elsa has got also switch it off.
Okay, and the app. Ah, no, you should be able to see me. Perfect. Is that working? All right, perfect. Yeah, great. Yeah, as I said, thank you very much for having us today. It's yeah, an honor to be presenting in front of this audience. Maybe we could set the stage basically just with a few words by myself on the most current trends basically in the area of VAT for e-commerce companies. So it is a complex topic, but I think it was always one of our goals as TAXDOO to try to convey this information like in the easiest way possible, actually, to help merchants in doing that. Yeah, let's give it a try if we can do this today. So in a nutshell, I think we can already jump to the first slide of the presentation. So TAXDOO is building the leading compliance platform for the digital economy. What does that mean? So we want to be the platform that you can use to basically get rid of all your financial compliance needs that you might have in the e-commerce sector. And we come from a VAT history, you could say, but as of today, this has developed into a plethora, like into a lot of different products around the topic of financial compliance in e-commerce. So just to give you an idea of how the entire thing works, just look at the regular process basically that we can offer to you. In the first step, we collect data in a fully automated way from different platforms, from marketplaces, from shop systems, or maybe even from your ERP system. If we don't have the connector that you might need for your transactions, we also have an API that's publicly documented that you can use to build your own connection to our system. And we've seen a lot of customers do this with great success. And we are also working with technical partners, actually, who can help in these cases. I think the most important part about this is we do not want to work with uploads. So we've seen that uploads basically always cause problems in the regular process every month. So we try basically to pull everything we can from your platforms and fully automate the data collection part of this entire process. We then have a tool that lets you analyze your transactions from a VAT and also like a financial perspective for things like intrastat, for example, so-called statistical declarations between countries. All of this is part of our product portfolio. We monitor your transactions, so we can alert you in case you become liable for VAT in a new country that you wouldn't have expected, actually. So we see this in a lot of cases where suddenly a new country pops up without the merchant actually being aware of it. And we also offer an automated service to determine the correct VAT rates for your products in all of the EU and also the UK after Brexit. So what happens with all that data that we have now calculated? Well, there are basically two ways in which we offer you further compliance services here. One is that we offer a data export for the one-stop shop. So of course, this has been a very hot topic in the entire industry. It's been a very hot topic for ourselves, of course, and we spent the last months working on an automated solution for exactly this this new scenario or this new regulatory environment that we're in at the moment. And at the same time, we also offer you local VAT registrations, filings in the respective countries. But the important thing about all of this is basically everything is done for you. What you need to do at the end of the day is just to pay the VAT in the respective country and basically be done with it. So all of the information exchange, all kinds of questions from the tax offices and so on will be handled through our platform. And if you want, you can then use that data to put it into your financial accounting. You'll have all the documentation ready in your system. So yeah, basically any kinds of hassles with your financial compliance with VAT basically belong to the past when you use TAXDOO. But enough about us. Maybe let's jump into the current trends and developments that we see in the VAT area. So we have two big trends actually that we're facing at the moment, if you will, two regulatory mega trends that we see in the VAT landscape in Europe. So on the one hand, we have we see that there are a lot of VAT obligations that used to be with companies or with the merchants, with you, the merchants, are now being shifted towards so-called gatekeepers. And those are marketplaces. Those can sometimes also be payment service providers and different types of e-commerce platforms, basically, or infrastructure, if you will. Of course, this does not mean that you as a merchant won't have to do anything to won't have anything to do with it anymore. But of course, the platforms or the gatekeepers will put a lot of this workload also on you as the merchant in order for them to be compliant with everything. And the second part is that we see also like a big move towards transaction-based real-time reporting. So basically, you won't only have to file one return at the end of the month or even quarter, but you'll have to file all your transactions basically almost in real time. So we've seen this in Spain, for example, where you have like the SII system with 72-hour reporting, and things like these are popping up in different countries. But maybe let's take a little bit of a deeper look into the first topic here. So we see that the platforms have become the spotlight of regulations, and this has changed a lot with the reforms that have started in or that were launched on July 1st of this year. So these are a few side effects basically of the one-stop shop reforms, and normally this is not discussed that much in the merchant community, but it is in our eyes actually a very important trend that will lead to a lot of changes in the regulatory landscape also for platforms. The background behind all of this is that actually every year there are 150 billion in VAT that are basically that the financial authorities in the EU miss out on. So the so-called VAT gap of 150 billion euros. So this is VAT that is actually owed to the countries but not paid. And so what the European regulators did is basically they thought to themselves, we have this problem that a lot of times there might be some merchants, maybe even from non-European countries or countries outside of the EU. They come into the EU, they sell their goods, but then they don't pay any VAT and disappear again, right? So we see this in a lot of cases and increasingly in the last years. So what the thought is basically, okay, we have these merchants, we cannot really grab them. You know, it's too hard to really get a hold of them. So what we can do is we can ask the marketplaces actually that have a physical presence in the EU to take on the responsibility for this. And this has a lot of important implications. So one thing is the so-called deemed supply chains. In this case, the marketplace actually becomes the person or the legal person that has to pay the VAT. For example, in the future now, when you have a Chinese seller selling some articles on a marketplace in the EU, not the Chinese seller will have to pay the VAT from those transactions, but the marketplace. And this is a very important change, of course. You have increasing filing complexity. This doesn't only concern the marketplaces and their actual VAT compliance, but they need to record a lot of documentation from the merchants on their platform and also report this to the authorities. You have a lot of issues with VAT rate determination. So of course, as you know, VAT rates are quite complex in Europe, and you have more than 70 different VAT rates in the entire European Union, a lot of exceptions everywhere, basically. And there's a lot of emphasis on the marketplaces now, basically, to offer this to the merchants and, of course, to the customers at the end of the day. as an added service, and they also need it for themselves, because if they're the persons having to pay the VAT, of course, they need to know how much. And last but not least, and this is also a trend that has already started before the reforms for July 1st, on July 1st, there is marketplace liability for non-paid VAT for any kind of seller. So for example, if you're a Spanish marketplace and you have a seller from Germany, for example, who just does not pay VAT for any transactions on your Spanish marketplace, you as the marketplace will be liable for this VAT if you haven't done a lot of documentation reporting before. So this means you'll have to track what your merchants are doing, how much are they selling, do they have a valid identification number, and so on. And all of this, of course, puts a lot of emphasis on the regulation, on the platforms, and regulators are coming after them in increasing speed, actually. And maybe if you take a look at the next slide, you can see here like an example how these so-called deemed supply chains work. So you have a seller on the top left, and you have a customer on the top right. And of course, there's like an article, let's say it's like a garlic press, goes from the seller to the customer as the physical transaction, but the transaction happens on a platform or on an electronic interface, like a marketplace. Then even though the goods movement is directly between the seller and the customer, there are actually two deemed supplies, actually two additional deemed supplies. You have one transaction, and this is only theoretical, if you will, but it's very practical if you look at the VAT implications. So you have like one transaction from the seller selling this article to the marketplace, and then the marketplace selling this article on to the consumer. The party that needs to pay the VAT is the marketplace in this case, even though the movement of goods was between the seller and customer. So this is a huge change, actually. Right now, it's active for merchants from third-party countries outside of the EU, but there is definitely a trend that this will go on and on. But what you can see is that, for example, you have a lot of deemed supplies between the seller and the marketplace in the future. So basically, it means you don't only and also as a merchant, your reporting requirements will just switch basically, and this will be handled as a transaction towards the marketplace, but not towards the final customer again. Of course, this needs to be in your system somehow, right? You need a technological way to take care of this, because in a manual world, this just won't work at all. And if we could continue to the next slide. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the second big trend that we see. So we just mentioned like the real-time reporting issues that you might face, and yeah, we see. Sorry, no, we're talking about the platform still. So this is like you have different levels basically of different depths of integration of platforms and the merchant, and this is basically what I mentioned when I was talking about the duties that the marketplace will put upon the merchants at the end of the day. So from July 2021, we had extended recording obligations for platforms. So you'll have to record the VAT IDs of the sellers. You'll have the basically address data of the supplying party or of the merchant. You'll have to know exactly the timing, amount of transactions, including the VAT treatment and so on. So there are a lot of wide-ranging obligations starting right now. And also from 2023, and this is already decided, we'll have the DAC 7 regulations on top of that. So this would mean that you have even more reporting obligations as a marketplace, as any platform. You'll have to provide personal data. You'll have to provide data on the exact type of articles that are sold on this marketplace. And of course, if you think about the big marketplaces, they'll be ready basically for all of this. But for smaller marketplaces, for also smaller platforms for digital services and so on, you will see that this is going to be very complicated actually to be compliant with. And again, without a capable electronic interface that you can use for this, it's going to be very hard to behave according to the law in those cases. Right, now let's go to the transactional real-time reporting. So this is the second big trend that I mentioned in the beginning. So you have the regulatory trend that the tax authorities actually don't want to wait anymore until the end of the month or quarter to hear from you how much you've paid on a certain platform. They would want to have this basically in real time or transmitted in real time to them. We see a lot of movements in Hungary, for example. We see it in Italy with also the electronic invoicing, where you're not, where you as a merchant are not the invoicing party anymore, but you basically just provide that data to an official platform or an API that takes your invoice data and then creates the invoice data for you. So it's all of it is in a central register, if you will. And we also see this, of course, in Spain with the immediate supply of information within 72 hours. If you made more than, I think, 6 million euros in revenues in Spain per year, you will have to basically report those transactions within 72 hours to the tax office, which is a huge challenge. It means that, I mean, you'll have to have real-time VAT evaluation at the same time. So if you need to file it on a real-time basis, you'll have to know immediately, of course, like what the VAT treatment of a single transaction is. You'll have to automate all kinds of data collection. You'll have to monitor this in order just to avoid risks that usually come with this. And this is a huge trend. It's been going on for a few years already now. We expect actually to see the entire EU switching to a model like this in a few years. And of course, we'll be very close to all of these developments, tracking them basically all the time. Also to be able to offer certain products that will alleviate basically the stress of dealing with this regulation. Right. That's it from my part. Thanks a lot. I'm going to hand over to my colleague Elsa, who will be continuing the presentation in Spanish. I'll still be around, of course, if you have any questions by the end of the talk. But so far, thank you very much for your attention. Looking forward to your questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Christian. Bueno, vamos a continuar. Sí, vamos a continuar con la segunda parte de la presentación en español. Y bueno, continuando con la agenda, vamos a hablar sobre las obligaciones fiscales que se dan en la Unión Europea. Hablaremos sobre las entregas intracomunitarias, la ventanilla única, también conocido como One Stop Shop. Veremos los escenarios más comunes y también los errores más comunes que se dan en el cumplimiento fiscal y cómo podemos evitarlos y subsanarlos, ¿no? Entonces, bueno, el primer punto, las obligaciones fiscales en la Unión Europea. Una de las obligaciones fiscales que se dan en este sector son las entregas intracomunitarias. Cuando nosotros participamos en programas de logística europeos, como puede ser el programa de Amazon, FBA o también el de Zalando Fulfillment Solutions, y enviamos nuestra mercancía desde nuestro almacén en España a diferentes almacenes distribuidos en diferentes países de la Unión Europea, tenemos una obligación fiscal. O sea, nuestra mercancía se envía de forma a diferentes países de la Unión Europea. Y aquí tenemos que tener en cuenta que estas entregas intracomunitarias deben ser notificadas en el país de origen y que las adquisiciones intracomunitarias se notifican en el país de destino, es decir, en el país en el que está el almacén. Entonces, en la práctica, como hemos dicho, somos un comerciante español que, bueno, participa en un programa de estos logísticos y envía su mercancía a diferentes almacenes. Tenemos que registrarnos fiscalmente en estos países y también presentar las declaraciones del IVA en estos países. Y todo esto hay que hacerse antes de empezar con la actividad comercial. También es importante tener en cuenta que existe una responsabilidad fiscal en caso de no notificar este tipo de transacciones, ¿no? Entonces, bueno, esta es una de las obligaciones fiscales que se dan en el e-commerce. La segunda obligación fiscal que se da son los umbrales de entrega y, bueno, hasta junio de 2021 teníamos los umbrales de entrega nacionales que oscilaban entre 35.000 y 100.000 euros, dependía del país, y una vez que se superaba este umbral de entrega nacional, pues teníamos una obligación fiscal en ese país, por lo tanto también teníamos que registrarnos fiscalmente y presentar la declaración del IVA en ese país una vez superado el umbral de entrega. A partir del 1 de julio entró en vigor un nuevo régimen fiscal y por lo tanto estos regímenes, o sea, estos umbrales de entrega nacionales que teníamos hasta ese momento se suprimen y pasa a haber un umbral de entrega único para todos los países de la Unión Europea por valor de 10.000 euros. Lo que quiere decir que en la práctica, si nosotros superamos este umbral de entrega de 10.000 euros único para todos los países de la Unión Europea, tenemos una obligación fiscal en todos los países a los que realicemos una venta a distancia intracomunitaria. Es decir, si yo he superado el umbral de entrega de 10.000 euros y realizo una venta a distancia, por ejemplo, a Polonia, tendría que una vez superado este umbral de entrega de los 10.000 euros, registrarme fiscalmente en Polonia y presentar las declaraciones del IVA allí. Dado que esto en la práctica sería bastante complicado, teniendo en cuenta que hasta que muchas veces no recibimos los informes finales no sabemos a cuántos países realmente hemos vendido, se introdujo junto con esta nueva reforma fiscal el uso de la ventanilla única. ¿Qué es la ventanilla única? También conocido como One Stop Shop, y cómo funciona. Bueno, la ventanilla única entró, el uso de la ventanilla única entró a la vez que la nueva regulación para las ventas a distancia, es decir, a partir del 1 de julio de 2021, y también es importante mencionar que el uso de la ventanilla única realmente es opcional. Nosotros podemos decidir si queremos registrarnos para la ventanilla única y presentar las declaraciones del IVA para las ventas a distancia a través de la ventanilla única o no. Y bueno, los requisitos que se tienen que dar es que se tiene que tratar de una venta a distancia intracomunitaria, el cliente tiene que ser un particular, tiene que ser una transacción B2C, se ha de superar el umbral de entrega y, como hemos dicho, el umbral de entrega pasa a ser un umbral de entrega único, total, para todos los países por valor de 10.000 euros. Entonces, ¿cómo funciona realmente la ventanilla única? Bueno, para la ventanilla única nosotros nos registramos siempre en el país en que la empresa tiene su sede fiscal. Al tratarse, por ejemplo, de una empresa española, se daría de alta o se registraría a través de la Agencia Tributaria Española. Las declaraciones serán siempre trimestrales y se harán desde el país de residencia, desde el país también en el que nos hemos registrado para la ventanilla única, y el plazo de pago será de un mes tras finalizar el periodo de notificación. También es importante mencionar que en el caso de que haya que realizar alguna corrección, se hará siempre en la declaración posterior y se indicará cuál es el periodo impositivo a regularizar. Y, exacto, las autoridades fiscales son las que distribuyen las declaraciones y el IVA recaudado a los respectivos países de la Unión Europea. Entonces nosotros, como comerciante online, lo que tenemos que hacer realmente es simplemente, como vemos en esta gráfica, bueno, somos una empresa española que realiza sus ventas a distancia desde España a diferentes clientes finales en diferentes países de la Unión Europea, y nos hemos dado de alta en la ventanilla única española a través de la agencia tributaria y presentaremos la declaración del IVA a través de esta ventanilla única. Es una única declaración que se hace de forma trimestral y un único pago. Y las autoridades son posteriormente las encargadas de distribuirlo entre los diferentes países. Otro de los temas importantes relacionados con la ventanilla única es la importancia de determinar correctamente el tipo impositivo de nuestros productos. Existen diferentes tipos de IVA existen diferentes tipos de IVA, ¿no? Tipo de IVA reducido, IVA especiales, y en total existen 79 tipos de IVA diferentes en la Unión Europea. Este tema cobra ahora muchísima más importancia porque en la declaración de la ventanilla única o One Stop Shop aplica el tipo de IVA extranjero. Entonces nosotros tenemos que conocer para todos nuestros productos cuál es el tipo de IVA que aplica para cada país. Y teniendo en cuenta la extensión que tienen los catálogos, es prácticamente imposible poder determinar el tipo de IVA para todos nuestros productos, para todos los países de forma manual. Entonces, por ejemplo, desde TAXDOO también podemos ayudar a determinar cuál es el tipo de IVA que corresponde a vuestros productos a raíz de una base de datos en la que después se determina cuál es el tipo de IVA a aplicar. Ahora vamos a ver 3 ejemplos que nos ayudan a entender un poco mejor qué tipo de transacción son las que se declaran a través de la ventanilla única y qué tipo de transacción se declara de forma local. Entonces, en el ejemplo 1 vemos que se trata de un envío intracomunitario y una entrega local. Entonces, bueno, se trata de una empresa española que envía su mercancía a un almacén en Polonia. Este tipo de transacción es una transacción que se sigue declarando de forma local y vemos que posteriormente hay un envío desde el almacén en Polonia a un cliente final también en Polonia. Al tratarse de una venta B2C en el mismo país, es una transacción que se declara de forma local. En el segundo ejemplo, se trata de un envío intracomunitario y una venta a distancia intracomunitaria. Igualmente, una empresa española que envía su mercancía a un almacén en Italia. Este tipo de transacción también se declarará de forma local y vemos que posteriormente tenemos una venta a distancia que se realiza desde nuestro almacén en Italia a un cliente final en Francia. Al tratarse de una venta a distancia intracomunitaria, esta transacción se declararía a través de la ventanilla única y una vez que nosotros estamos registrados en la ventanilla única, no tenemos que registrar en Francia ni presentar las declaraciones del IVA en ese país para este tipo de transacción. Entonces, exacto, tratarse de una empresa española con el almacén en Italia y venta final es un cliente ubicado en Francia en una venta a distancia intracomunitaria. En el tercer ejemplo, se trata nuevamente de un envío intracomunitario y una venta a distancia. En este caso, bueno, vuelve a ser una empresa española que envía su mercancía nuevamente a un almacén en Italia. Igualmente, esta transacción se declarará de forma local, pero vemos que el cliente final, en este caso, se trata de un cliente español. A pesar de tratarse de un cliente español y de una empresa española, al realizarse la venta a distancia desde el almacén en Italia, este tipo de transacción también se declarará a través de la ventanilla única, porque se trata de una venta a distancia intracomunitaria. Entonces, en la siguiente diapositiva vemos una visión general de cumplimiento, porque uno de los puntos que tenemos que tener en cuenta con la introducción de la ventanilla única es que hay un tipo de transacción que se declarará a través de la ventanilla única, que son las ventas a distancia intracomunitarias, y por otro lado tenemos las transacciones que se siguen declarando de forma local, como son los envíos intracomunitarios, las transacciones B2B, las transacciones B2C dentro del mismo país, el IVA soportado, y por lo tanto es importante en este caso tener un control de qué tipo de transacciones de qué tipo de transacciones se trata y poder diferenciar bien si son transacciones, o sea, si se tratan de ventas a distancia intracomunitarias, si se tratan de ventas B2B, B2C, para poder posteriormente hacer la declaración del IVA de forma correcta. Entonces, vamos a pasar ahora a ver los escenarios más comunes. Uno de los escenarios más comunes que tenemos, ¿no? Es, bueno, tenemos una tienda propia online y vendemos nuestros productos a través de nuestra tienda online. En estos casos es muy importante determinar qué tipo de transacciones, si se trata de una transacción B2B, si se trata de una transacción B2C, si se trata de una transacción B2C, o sea, si se trata de una venta a distancia intracomunitaria, ya que dependiendo de qué tipo de transacción sea, pues se declarará a través de la ventanilla única o se declarará a través de forma local, ¿no? Entonces tenemos que, o sea, sería bueno tener siempre como una herramienta que nos ayude a poder diferenciar qué tipo de transacción se trata para que a la hora de hacer las declaraciones tengamos claro qué transacción se declarará en qué declaración. También es importante en estos casos llevar un control del umbral de entrega para saber si finalmente tenemos que hacer la declaración a través de la ventanilla única o no y poder también actuar a tiempo, es decir, si nosotros vamos viendo una tendencia de superar este umbral de entrega de los 10.000 euros, tendríamos que plantearnos si queremos si queremos darnos de alta en la ventanilla única o no a tiempo para poder presentar la próxima declaración a través de la ventanilla única y no tener local. El segundo escenario, también un escenario bastante típico, es que bueno, vendemos nuestros productos tanto a través de una tienda online propia como a través de diferentes marketplaces. Aquí es muy importante tener toda la información centralizada en una herramienta, porque si nosotros vendemos, por ejemplo, a través de nuestra tienda propia y a través de diferentes marketplaces, debemos tener una herramienta que recoja todo para que cuenten todas las transacciones, porque todas las transacciones cuentan, es decir, aunque tú, por ejemplo, vendas 5 productos a través de, o sea, tengas 5 transacciones a través de tu tienda online, luego tengas 3 a través de un marketplace, 2 a través de uno y 1 a través del otro, todas cuentan, aunque sea solamente una. Entonces es importante tener toda la información centralizada para que a la hora de hacer las declaraciones tengamos toda la información que se necesita, ¿no? También es muy importante en estos casos determinar el tipo de transacción. Nuevamente, si se trata de una venta B2C dentro del mismo país, si se trata de una venta a distancia intracomunitaria o si por el contrario es una entrega intracomunitaria, por lo cual tendremos también que registrarnos de forma local en el país. Y como hemos mencionado al principio, lo más importante también es registrarse de forma previa antes de empezar con la actividad comercial en estos países. Bueno, vamos a ver ahora cuáles son los errores más comunes que se dan y bueno, uno de los errores que hemos visto con mucha frecuencia es el uso de estos programas logísticos europeos sin realizar el registro fiscal previo en los países de almacenamiento. Estas cosas ocurren por desconocimiento, participamos en estos programas, mandamos nuestras mercancías y posteriormente nos enteramos que, dado que estamos almacenando en estos países, deberíamos estar registrados fiscalmente y también presentar la declaración del IVA. Otro de los errores más comunes que se dan es no determinar a tiempo si se ha superado el umbral de entrega o no y por lo tanto, si no nos hemos registrado a tiempo para la ventanilla única, pues tendríamos que declarar de forma local. Entonces, en estos casos también es muy importante llevar un control y de forma centralizada de todas nuestras ventas para poder ir supervisando el tema de los umbrales de entrega. Y otro de los errores más comunes es no determinar de forma correcta el tipo impositivo para las ventas a distancia en el extranjero. Como hemos dicho, pues habiendo tantos tipos de IVA y teniendo unos catálogos tan extensos, a veces es difícil hacerlo y sobre todo si es de forma manual. Entonces son los errores que más hemos visto en este sector, ¿no? Pero bueno, para todo hay solución y estos problemas o estos errores se pueden evitar y también se pueden subsanar presentando las declaraciones de forma retroactiva. Y bueno, por ejemplo, desde TAXDOO os podemos ayudar a analizar y a preparar todos estos datos, presentar las declaraciones de forma retroactiva, también corregir las declaraciones y las devoluciones en el extranjero. Por ejemplo, en el caso de España sería el asesor fiscal local el que corrija las declaraciones en España, pero y también si hay, por ejemplo, se han dado varios errores en diferentes países, pues se puede subsanar todo de forma local y por país. Entonces, bueno, esto es todo por nuestra parte y antes de pasar a la ronda de preguntas, agradeceros hasta el momento vuestra atención y aquí tenéis nuestros datos de contacto. Si hay todavía dudas o temas que queráis hablar con nosotros, podéis mandarnos un correo electrónico. También a través de la página web podéis agendar una reunión en español conmigo en la que podemos ver vuestro caso de forma individual y también resolver todas vuestras dudas. Así que bueno, estamos encantados de poder ayudaros con todo esto.
Muchísimas gracias, Elsa, Cristian, Maximilian. La verdad que, como imagino que habrán podido comprobar muchos, esto es un entorno bastante complejo y, como todo, pues al final conlleva a delegar o apoyar al final en partner en este ámbito a la hora de crecimiento en Marketplace. Os voy a ir comentando aquí algunas preguntas que han ido surgiendo, ¿vale? Las comento si queréis en español, en el caso que sea Cristian, si no solo la comento en inglés. Me preguntan también, que es un poco la que más votos ha tenido, si también gestionáis impuestos para bebidas alcohólicas. Estáis muteados. No sé. Vale.
Sí. Well, I might take this one in English and then maybe I try to translate also in Spanish. So with alcoholic products, there's two things we have to look at here. One is the VAT, like the IVA, which we can also declare and we can determine and we can take care of that. But the other one in English, it's called excise duty. This is a thing that we cannot declare and often is done by, is also not declared at the local tax authorities, it's also often declared at the tariffs office. So this is out of scope of our service so far. So if the person voting this up is only concerned in the taking care of the VAT, yes, we could do that. If it's also about the excise duty, I don't know the Spanish word, then we cannot. But anyhow, if some people listening and have iconic products selling them, Elsa can also post a link where you can just like book an appointment with her. Then you can talk about your special situation, and then we might be able to help you, or just to let you know how this could be handled.
Okay, great. And also, as we have sent previously, any additional doubts you want to have consults to our team, we have a Calendly link, calendario de Calendly, que creo que lo han mandado por el chat para que también podáis ahí agendar también si queréis alguna reunión con el equipo. Second question, this one is more soft skills, but based on the one-stop shop and all of this coming up, that you recommend the companies to do this process previously. I mean, when they decide at the beginning to internalize, or they should planify with several times previously in order to have all the structure needed to sell there. How do you see that?
Elsa, for the audience, you want to take that in Spanish, or should I do that in English? Both is fine for me, but
English, if you
okay, perfect. So the most important thing is depending on analyze a bit your situation where you are as a company. So if you let's say you have like a Spanish Amazon account, don't underestimate as well that there might be Portuguese people buying from your Spanish platform already. For example, we have a colleague in sales that is also an Amazon seller as a side business. And last year, he was only selling in Amazon.de. He sold to 16 European countries without being listed, because it's just people from other countries also purchasing. So most important is that you really know where you're selling to. If you haven't really planned to internationalize, then just observe a bit, and I wouldn't recommend to just subscribe for the Ventanilla Única if it's not necessary. If you're at a stage where you're like already quite successful in Spain, and you think, okay, now the next 2-3 months we want to really internationalize. We want to go abroad. We want to target different markets. Maybe with the Amazon Pani U, but maybe also with your online shop. Might it be also with Zalando fulfillment, whatsoever? Then you can already register if you want, because then sooner or later you will very soon hit the 10,000 euro threshold, because
you will need it.
It is very low threshold. If you want to go really international in the EU, you will soon reach it. So then you can already start taking care of the little like administrative burden to register, because you will need it anyways.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be kind of an advice.
Okay, good. Also, they're asking, what are the problems that normally when you present the one-stop shop, if you have had incomes in a currency different from the euro?
Mm-hmm. This is also a very good question, and a very common question we get quite often. So if you sell the product in a foreign currency, non-euro currency, you obviously would issue, you might issue an invoice, and you would collect the VAT as well in that foreign currency. What you need to do is, obviously you need to transfer the whole amount of VAT paid through the one-stop shop in euros in Spain to the Spanish tax authority. So all your VAT that you have collected in a foreign currency, let's say Polish zloty, for example, on the last working day of the filing period of the OSS, you would transfer this with the ECB, with the European Central Bank rate for that day, 2 euros. So let's say you have 10 sales in one quarter with Polish zloty. You sum all of these up. The last working day of the quarter, you calculate the corresponding euro amount, and you would declare that, and you would also pay that.
If I may maybe add just to this, so usually you get for the OSS, you get like one official exchange rate per quarter actually that you need to use for all of this. So in the worst case, you will have some kind of internal handling that will use maybe like a daily exchange rate from the European Central Bank. But then for the OSS, you need to use those exchange rates like at the end of the quarter. they are like officially presented to you or provided to you. And so we've seen a lot of cases actually like with some filings in other countries where because of exchange rate confusion, basically there were like small differences in the declaration, like in the respective local language and in euros. And in some cases, this even leads to like tax offices basically sending out letters because of like maybe 9 or 10 euros that that weren't paid because of because like the merchant took like an incorrect exchange rate and so on. So this kind of points like to the complexity of it all. You need to basically really know what you're doing in order to know how much VAT you need to pay in which country.
Okay, great. There's an additional question here. This has been asked in a previous conference there. So what is the cost of your service? To let them know. I'm sure that's also what is the opportunity cost, of not having a partner that really covers you all this in this environment, But I'm sure, you can answer. I'm sure it will be personalized, depending on the company structure, project,
Yes, you're very right, Javier. I'm very happy to get this question. So there might be someone interested also in our service here in the audience. But as you said, you're absolutely right. It depends a bit, because we have various product components, and not everyone might need all of these services. So the price is not one fits all. It's very individualized to the needs and to also the scenarios maybe Elsa just presented. Where are you at the moment? Where do you want to go? What's next? So the price will vary. The lowest price is like 89 euros per month for the software. But I think in terms you're interested, just book an appointment with Elsa. You go through your situation. You explain a bit where you stand at the moment. What are the plans maybe? And then she can afterwards also give you a quote. So you have really like individual pricing. Opportunity costs are very, very high, I would say. Is like no one wants to deal with the tax authorities. Everyone is just always happy when everything works fine. So this is actually what we take care of. But if not, and it becomes more and more complex, you just need someone to help you to analyze each transaction. This is the really difficult thing. The one-stop shop might make it easier for you as well if you have someone really analyzing all your transactions, taking care of that. Then life becomes much more easier for you. So opportunity costs can be quite high if you have like a tax audit or VAT audit in a foreign country. Then yeah. But people sometimes
the worst battle that companies can have companies versus the state. So they're very complex. Okay, great. Last question that we asked to all of the partners that we have been having here. How do you visualize as a tax company? How do you visualize the tax environment the coming 5 years? What will be the tax requirements in e-commerce in 5 years? Or what will be the threats or the opportunities?
Yeah, I think I'll take this question.
I think that's for you, Christian,
okay.
right?
So no, I think it very well plays into the topics that I presented. We have this move towards like real-time filing. We see a lot of the regulators are really cracking down on VAT fraud in any kind of industry. And of course, the e-commerce industry is very important for that. They really want to make sure that they can collect all the VAT that is actually owed. So we've seen the first steps now with the marketplaces, with the deemed supply constellations and so on. We see the kind of real-time reporting, so that, for example, you can't just maybe come to Europe, sell your articles for 3 months, and before the first VAT return is due, you just disappear again. So all of that is very well in motion, you could say. And we see the entire market digitalizing a lot, and it's not only, I think, an issue for the merchants themselves, but we also work a lot with accountants who see these problems in the future. We also have now just rolled out a product for marketplaces themselves, so they can integrate our VAT engine into their backend. So there's definitely going to be a lot of automation. There's going to be a lot of technology that will need to be used in the future, actually, to comply with all of the new regulations. That's how I would basically the situation 5 years down the road.
Very interesting view, Christian. Thanks for that. Okay, so I think we haven't much more time. We have also passed through the hour. So Christian, Maximilian, Elsa from TAXDOO, thank you very much for coming for the first edition of the event. And we stay in touch. I hope in the future we can also join in another ones. So thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us. It's truly a pleasure.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Bye.